This is episode number 191 with Sharran Srivatsaa.
New concepts and ideas to help you reach your full potential. Reach your full potential. Reach your full potential. Small win, small win, small win. Keep your momentum going.
The Success 101 Podcast.
Welcome to the Success 101 Podcast. This is your host, Jared Warren, and each episode, my goal is to bring you a new concept or idea to help you maximize your full potential. Thanks for joining me here today. Now let's kick things off. Hey guys, welcome back to the Success 101 Podcast. I am so fired up as always to be here with you. And as always, this is your host, Jared Warren. I've had an awesome week this week here with my financial advising team, the financial advisors that I coach, my private coaching clients. And really this week, guys, I took a lot of time reading through some of the emails and comments that you guys are sending in. And as I've mentioned before, that's really what makes this podcast worthwhile. I can get behind a microphone and record or bring on high impact people to send out to you guys, but it's your comments that keeps this thing going, letting me know how it's impacting you, how you're rocking the year for 2018, and what you guys are doing to reach higher levels of peak performance. Today's show is brought to you by Ample, the awesome meal replacement drink that has so many of you hitting higher levels of peak performance with both brain and body functions based on the awesome ingredients that the team over at Ample has put into this meal replacement shake. Faithful listeners have heard me talk about Ample over and over, and I can't stop talking about this awesome meal in a bottle with some of the most quality fats, clean burning carbohydrates, probiotics, and a ton of good stuff out there that you can't find anywhere. Head to success101podcast.com/ample, that's AMPLE, and grab your 400 or 600 calorie shake today, and I can promise you, you won't be sorry that you did. Now, let's get right into my awesome episode today with my good friend, Sharran Srivatsaa, who has had a tremendous amount of success in his personal and professional life. Sharran is a sought-after growth-focused entrepreneur, keynote speaker, mastermind facilitator, and respected thought leadership resource for publications such as the Wall Street Journal, Huffington Post, and Forbes. Most recently, he grew Teles Properties by 10x in 5 years and led its acquisition to national real estate powerhouse Douglas Elliman, where he is now the President of Brokerage for the Western region. After leading Teles' unprecedented 10x growth over 5 years and a 3-year consecutive streak on the Inc. 500 list, Sharran's focus continues to be on growth, culture, and innovation. And as you can tell, I could go on and on about Sharran's success, but the biggest thing is he is such an outside-the-box thinker. He is extremely meticulous about how he maps out his day and plans out his vision for where he's going in the future. And I could not wait to get his peak performance message to you guys here on the Success 101 podcast. I know you guys are going to have a ton of takeaways from hearing the way Sharran thinks and the way he methodically tackles each task in front of him when he has his sights set on success. This is one I couldn't wait to bring to you guys. So without any further delay, let's jump right into my conversation with the one and only Sharran Srivatsaa. Sharran, welcome to the Success 101 podcast, buddy. How are things today?
Jared, thank you for having me on. I'm super excited to be with you.
I'm fired up for you to be on. I get excited about every guest, but I know that you and I share a little bit of a similar story in our background. I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag too quickly here, but I'm excited to dive into that. Also, we share some pretty dynamic mutual connections in Bedros and Craig Ballantyne and some great people out there doing amazing things. And I'm just happy to have you on. I know you're going to bring a lot of background here, a lot of actionable points. It would be really helpful to know with the amazing things you're doing today, how you did get to where you are. So as far back as you want to go, let's go there. And then I know we're going to open up a ton of great things for the listeners today.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me on. And I think a lot of listeners don't understand and appreciate what it takes to find and mind great people, get them on the schedule, put a podcast together. So kudos to you for doing this. And I love your show. So thank you for having me on. Jared, a lot of times people start back kind of that, hey, here's where I was born and here's what I did. But I want to take us back to just a very simple time when I think a lot of your listeners would appreciate it. So my partners and I, we got into this business, in this real estate brokerage business, if you will, about 7 years ago. And we thought it had phenomenal opportunity. And I was really excited because I was waiting for an opportunity where I could just unleash the entrepreneurial spirit, if you will. And we realized that with the markets the way they were and the business the way it was, that we could really achieve phenomenal impact with this 10x growth idea. So we set the goal where we would grow the company 10x. And Jared, what happened was, as the growth happened, I realized something. I realized that the business was growing 10x, and the way I was contributing to that was I was doing it by throwing my heart, soul, and spirit, physically and mentally at it. But I had not grown as fast as the business was growing. I had not grown personally as fast as the business was growing. And the one thing that really happened, which really shook my life, was I got really sick. I got a ton of digestive system issues, and a lot of it was stress related, to the point where I could barely even wake up and work anymore. And that's where kind of this journey of thinking about my life in a much more holistic way started.
Let's take a step back a little bit. I just think people's stories are all fascinating. We all have even if somebody's story sounds similar to somebody else, right? There's something there. There's something in there that makes it uniquely yours. Some people don't even know that they didn't grow as fast personally as they did professionally, or some people maybe don't want to think that about themselves, right? Because we always want to put ourselves on a little bit of a different pedestal until we really start examining ourselves. I'm putting myself in the listener's shoes out there that's hearing this and either creating something huge or they've got the desire to do that. How do you think you even got to the stage? Just being transparent here, was it a kind of a fake it till you make it type thing and you knew you weren't ready? Or did you really think you were ready, but then once the stresses and the demands came on, that's when it really became apparent to you?
Great question. I actually thought I was ready. When we set up to grow the business, and I'll give you a very simple just metrics to grow with. We ran one of our businesses. We ran a coastal real estate agency in the California coastal market, so central to Southern California. When I joined the firm, we had 55 agents selling real estate in Beverly Hills, and as of kind of January 1, we have 630. So we grew 10x in 5 years. And I actually believe that to create both economically and for impact, that we had to create that impact. We had to create that growth. So we actually sat down, worked with the coach, built a blueprint. And I was pretty excited, Jared. I knew that I could do it. I just had no idea what it took along the way.
I think a lot of people do realize they're in a little bit over their heads, but they think just through their pure talent, their pure grit, determination, the hustle, the grind, all the words we hear about today, that everything will take care of itself if they just keep pushing forward. And that's why, I'll speak for you and I here, we can't just muscle it through, but some people are really kidding themselves thinking, I know I'm in over my head. For you, it was a little different. For you, maybe myself as well, if I'm putting myself in the same shoes as you, we really thought we were there, but we really didn't know what it took and the demands that it was going to take until we really started getting beaten down. I know you were doing some things with Goldman Sachs and Credit Suisse before that. If you're allowed to speak on that, what was your role with them and how did that really prepare you?
Yeah, totally. So, I learned work ethic at Goldman. I mean, I had 39 one-on-one interviews to get a post-business school, post-MBA to get a role at Goldman. I was on their investment management, private wealth side of the business. So very similar to, the world that you play in one of your spaces. The Wall Street world is, really, really dog-eat-dog world, right? And so I say this often to people who wanting to go into the investment banking business is, Jared, this is so crazy. I thought that I worked my face off. I mean, I would get there as early as possible. I would leave as late as possible. And in my entire 4.5-5 years doing that, I was never the first one in and never the last one out.
Wow.
And that's insane. Like, not for one day. And I've gotten there. I've left at 2 a.m. I've gotten there at 2 a.m. and I was never the first one in or last one out. And that's just insane, right? And I think that was when I thought, hey, you know what? If I could turn this around and be a business operator where I could actually drive the blueprint that I've set for myself, maybe I can create a path and create a destiny that and a bigger and better future for myself.
I'm assuming here, so correct me if I'm wrong, you were in your 20s at that time. Is that right?
Yes, I was. Yeah, I am 37 now. I was in my late 20s then.
Okay, so for someone in their 20s who's tuning in, or for someone on into their 30s or even 40s who maybe is making a career switch and doing something different, looking back, hindsight 2020, right? What are the things you would have said to yourself back then, knowing what you know now and what you can tell our listeners who are maybe experiencing the same thing either before or after a big move like you did?
As always, Jared, I think looking back, hindsight's 2020, but what I say may be hokey. I never believed that the majority of what we do is the psychology, the skills, and the mechanics are the minority, maybe 20, 25%. If I could have had just a better mindset and better psychology on how to think about the world, how to take rejection better, how to create more positivity in my life, how to actually visualize a goal and believe that I have the ability to affect it. They don't teach you any of that in business school or anywhere,
right.
And it's so sad that you have to learn all that the hard way. If I could look back, and the biggest thing, if I just had a little bit more of a psychological edge, it would have given me a completely different trajectory in my life.
If we're looking back on the youngsters out there, it's easy to say, oh, looking back, back in my day, whatever. But this information applies to anybody. There are more people at later ages, research shows, making big career changes or making big pivots who still have not yet arrived in that personal growth space. And you're right. The School of Hard Knocks is a great place to learn. It's not a lot of fun to go through, but it just seems like there would be more in business school, more in just the academia out there that would teach us more about those things, and they don't. So you have to cut your teeth, and that's a good thing, but there should be more. There should be more education. So for people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, again, like I said, if you're putting yourself in their shoes, knowing what you know today after the leap that you've taken and the things that you've done, you just mentioned the hindsight 2020, the lessons you would learn, that psychological edge, those sort of things. What do you wish you had been reading or diving into back then to personally grow yourself, to expand your horizons, your mind, that you later found out you should have been tapping into that would have gotten you a little bit further along?
It's a great question. So that the answer is very simple, because the answer is, what am I doing now that I should have been doing earlier, right? Which is exactly what it is. And I'll tell you, so the first thing is, Jared, and I'm sure you'd agree with me on this one, is we spend so much more time on what do I want to be? What do I want to achieve? What are my ambitions? What are my aspirations? As to flipping it. And this may sound hokey, but one of my coaches always says, you get bonus points for telling the truth. The faster and sooner we all realize who we are and how we're wired, that itself goes a long, long way. So for example, I'm just wired, I'm wired for a high energy. I'm wired for a high contribution. I want to do stuff. I go. I just want to me, until I'm creating, until I'm working, until I'm pushing, until I'm doing, I don't feel the fire. I don't feel the love. I don't feel the passion. And a lot of people think that may be, hey, there's Sharran bragging. It's actually really painful. It's really, entrepreneurship is a life sentence. It's a curse. And my wife, it affects our marriage all the time, because we would go on a vacation and we sit on a beach and my wife's like, can you just chill out for 5 minutes? And I was like, I'm just not wired this way. And then it took us 5, 8, 9, 10 years of marriage for her to realize that that's just the state I'm in. And the faster I think we have some self-awareness as to who we are and being totally okay with that, I think that allows us to figure out, what we want to do. And I'll tell you this, Jared, I think I never realized this. If there's one thing that I could have done 10 years ago that I didn't do 10 years ago, it would be to get a coach, straight up. You just don't, when you're inside the bottle, you just can't read the label, right? Or whatever analogy you want to use. You don't have outside eyes. And I remember my first coach, I was really impressed with this lady. She was just, I saw her speak at a conference. She was just fantastic. I was like, wow, wouldn't it be amazing if I could be her, if she could be my mentor? And so I talked to my dad about it. My dad said, hey, the fastest way to get her to be your mentor is to walk over to her or call her and say, hey, listen, here's a check. Make the number as big as what you can afford. Here's a check, and tell her you expect nothing except for the fact that you can reach out once in a while and that she'd prioritize your communications over others. That's it. You didn't want a formal relationship. You just paid for access. I was like, Dad, how do you do that? And he goes, come up with a number, Sharran, that you can handle, that is so painful, but you can handle it. And so I called her, Jared. I offered her, and you should have heard the silence on the phone. And she said, no one's ever done that. You're in. I don't know what you're looking for, but if these are the terms, I'm in. And so I just got I didn't even have any formalized coaching. I would just reach out and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. Can you help me think through this? And I would get prioritized access to a coach. And since that day, since 10 years ago till today, I am 100% okay with paying for access, because if you don't pay, you don't pay attention, right? And coaching, business mentoring, I'm a 100% good paying for access, because that was the fastest change in trajectory overall. So I would say coaching was probably number one, and that changed everything.
Well, and to let the cat out of the bag a little bit for the listeners, I know you spent some time with Joe Polish as well, which you got to pay for that. That's not given away either. So I know he says that a lot, is that you're not going to pay attention unless you actually have to pay for it. And there's a lot of people out there that, we've all been there, right? We want to get something for free. We want to cut corners, but coaching is just not really something you can do that on. For those listening out there, if you've never had a formal engagement with a coach, I don't care what age you are, go all in, because number one, you're not going to take it as seriously, but they may not either. How much time would she have given you above maybe other people or things in life she was working on had you tried to do it for free? That's great advice by your dad. I love that. Just kind of on a side note here, I'm just curious as I'm thinking through this. I'm sure you've gone through a round or two of your own personality tests, but sometimes those tests help, sometimes those tests don't. Do you have any out there for people who are really trying to use that as their first step to learn who they really are? Are there any great ones that you would recommend that have really given you some relevance on that?
Yeah, great question. I love. I've done several of them. The Myers-Briggs and all of that stuff. But the one thing that stands out, which I come back to over and over again, Jared, is the Colby. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yeah.
Kolbe. And my suggestion is to the hardest part about the tests or the indicators are the instruments. It would be amazing if you have a team or your family just to do them for everybody. Just so you understand, it's just not just who you are, but who you are in relation to the people that you'll work with every day. That is the most powerful thing. When you can get everybody coming into an organization, say we have a small team of 8 people, everybody takes the Colby, and then you all use the Colby's kind of nomenclature. So they're like, oh yeah, Sharran's a quick start. Don't give him any notes because he's very bad with prepping. Do whatever you want with him, in a creative space, because he's going to come up with better ideas when you don't prep him as opposed to when you do prep him. That's completely different. So the team understands that. And whereas it may be for our CFO where, hey, you need to have a prep email to him before you actually walk in the meeting because that's how he thinks. I think that awareness, both for yourself and for the team members looking in, is super powerful. Just doing what I've noticed here, just doing the type indicators in isolation does not provide any transformation.
Right. And you hit the nail on the head. I've not personally taken the Colby yet, but I had 2 very respectable people in my life last year tell me almost the same thing, that I needed to take it. But they both said that basically what you said is it's not just really for you like some tests are out there. You really need to do it with your entire team. So for those listening out there who maybe have tried, disc profiles or others out there, maybe even tried the Colby, the other thing that I hear from some people is you'll get one person who's amazing in their space that maybe says, yeah, the Colby really didn't do a lot for me. It was this other test over here. Or maybe that test didn't do anything. It was the Colby. I think you have to take a few different ones in order to find out, because all of them, they're not going to nail it 100%, right?
Right.
And though they've really done a good job over the years of really winnowing that down to a science, I would encourage you guys to dip your hand in all of them. But I really need to get on the Colby, because that's the one, I think of all the ones out there I've had guests on talk about, that is the one that I have not dipped my toes into yet. And I probably just need to get my team on it here for 2018.
And and Jared, it's super easy to do. The other thing the 2 things that I love about the Colby, number one, Kathy Colby is the daughter of Wonderlic, the Wonderlic test. And the second thing, her, the whole Colby's perception and mentality, which is very cool, which is what attracted me to it, was that you can take it at any point in your life and it will not change. That's awesome. And that was the biggest attraction for me, which I was like, okay, well, this actually goes to the heart of who you are and what you do and how you are. And I think, Jared, you made a great point. If the listener takes 1, 2, or 3 type indicators, they'll very quickly start to see the pattern on. You're going to see some similarities, and that is definitely some awareness building similarities.
That's right. We had gotten up to the point where you really had mentioned you hadn't grown as personally as you thought you had, and you were stepping into this professional arena. Started having maybe some GI tract or gut issues, started having stress. Your wife, you said, even in later years, had picked up on the fact that this is just kind of how you're wired. Fill in the gaps of getting us up to the present time and what you dealt with and how you got through it.
It was a dark time in my life, and I had to do this in isolation. I had to kind of go through the healing process without my team knowing that I was actually struggling with it. And Jared, that was probably the hardest thing, because I had this outward facing front that I was driving this organization. I was creating culture. I was building, driving the growth plan that we had. But at the same time, my health was breaking down. After going through different kind of health medical resources, I came upon this amazing naturopath, and he said to me, he's like, hey, give me 6 weeks and I'll at least find out what's wrong with you. Like, that was awesome. Like, that was the first time that someone didn't just go to, let me heal you. He just stopped and he said, give me 6 weeks and let me find what's wrong, like what is actually bothering you. And so we did a bunch of tests, etc. And Jared, here's the kicker. He just said, hey, I have several recommendations for you, but the first one you're not going to like. He said, all I need you to do is your liver enzymes, your liver toxicity seems to be much higher at night than it is in the morning, because we've done a bunch of tests. And he said, looking at these tests, Sharran, all I would suggest just for now is be awake more early on and go to sleep as early as possible. Just switch your day, shift your day up. And he's like, you'll live longer if you just wake up earlier. I was like, oh my gosh. And I thought that I got my best, I assumed that I got my best work done when all the emails kind of stopped coming at us at 9 o'clock at night. I would just plow and do deep work from 9 p.m. to like 2 a.m. And I would sleep in 7, 8, 9, whatever. But I would feel what would help me go to bed, Jared, was the feeling of accomplishment. That's what would make me go to bed. And that's insane. Like that's insane. And so I said, okay, well, so I tried waking up early. So I said, all right, maybe I'll wake up at 5 o'clock. And I tried, and I had these very volatile, ways to wake up. I just never woke up. And I called, I was talking to my coach, and she said, hey, so if your doctor said that you should wake up early, let's try to create an environment where you can. So she goes, pull out your phone and look at the 3 people that you texted last. Sounds like they're your friends. Text all 3 of them and tell them that you're going to call them at 5 a.m. for the next 7 days. And I said, my friends are going to, they're going to be mad that I did that. She's like, no, go do that. If they're true friends, find the other 3. But when you have public accountability, you will never let 3 people down. Like, you will never do that. And so I did shoot out this text message. I got 3 people who said, hey, they were like, hey, I said, I'll call you at 5 a.m. You're my accountability. And so the first response to them was, well, what are you going to say? I said, oh, good question. I'll make something inspirational. I'll make it worth your while for 2 or 3 minutes. Something funny, something inspirational. I'll have a message. And they said, fine. So the day came. I made the first call. I got, I conferenced all 3 of them in, the 4 of us. I shared. At 5 a.m, I was barely coherent. I shared the message, and I some kind of inspirational message. I don't know what it was. And they said, oh, that was cool. And then they came right back on the next day, then the third day. And the third day, Jared, they said, hey, do you mind if we invite other people to this call? Hey, I'm doing one to many. I don't care how many people are on. This is my reason. This is my, kind of my penance to be up at 5 a.m. because I made a commitment to the 3 of you. And so those 3 invited more and invited more and invited more. I've been doing this for close to 2 years now, and we have over 1,000 people on the call today.
Wow!
And it's called the 5 a.m. Club. I probably don't know, I probably don't know 800 people on the call. I probably know the 200, but it's organically grown. I wake up every morning. We do it 7 days a week. I wake up every morning at 4:59. I dial into the call. It's a conference call. It's accountability for everybody to be on, a great Facebook page. And Jared, there is no way I would have ever woken up so many days in a row and created a message to share, maybe of humor or inspiration or what have you, every morning at 5 a.m. if I did not have the accountability. And I would tell you that was probably the keystone habit, the trigger that completely changed how I started to live my life.
Wow, that's so awesome. Just something so simple, but so powerful and profound that it also is magnetizing for other people to come in and join on. Just on a side note here, small details mean a lot when you're talking about implementing certain rituals and habits and things like that. And I've been surprised through the podcast. It's not the big stuff that people write in and ask me about. It's the little small details. And I can imagine people writing in You said it's a conference call system, so I'm sure it's like a, for people out there, it's like 1-800 free conference call, or something like that. But in the early days, when you were just picking up, more than likely, correct me if I'm wrong, a cell phone, patching somebody in, calling, how did you guys start building more people into that in an easy way? Was it just having somebody call the next person or whatever before you got an actual thing that was going? What did you use? What system?
Yeah, so originally we just had, I just conferenced a few people in for the first few days, and then I just set up a conference call, like a free conference call number. And after like the first, we had that conference call number for at least a year, and then it started affecting people's ability to log in because they were getting timed out or not being able to get on. So on this private Facebook page, I would get irate people saying, "Sharran, this is insane. I was up. I committed to being on this, and I got a busy tone. I tried 5 times." And so I just upped my, I just went and bought a enterprise system this year, just so everybody could get on. And it was a no pin, one dial in. So now everyone's happy that they can all, it can support thousands of users. And so I just pay the money so that I don't get any more irate people waking up at 5 a.m.
And how are you working around time zones and things like that? Because obviously not everyone is waking up at the same 5 a.m.
Exactly. So I'm on Pacific time, and I just anchor it to Pacific time. We have people. I have one person dial in from Hawaii, so she's a night owl. So that's her trigger to go to bed, which is pretty cool. And I launch it at 5 a.m. and we have people across all time zones. The easternmost time zone I have someone in is dialing in from Iceland, so they're 8 hours ahead. And the westernmost time zone is from Hawaii. We don't do any broadcasts. I don't even share the recordings. I keep the recordings as well, just to give people the commitment to being on. We actually started this, Jared, and you'll really appreciate this, with a 30-day commitment. You had to be on every single day for 30 days. If not, you get kicked off the call. And that's what really started to get people to build that habit.
And you were able to monitor that, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I would just get the call logs, and I could tell, if someone was on or someone was not on.
Wow, that is awesome. True accountability right there. People can find that if they go over to 5amclub.net.
That's the valid address. Everybody is welcome. It has sample calls on there, and it's a growing community. I'd say the most joyful part of that community, Jared, is the Facebook page, the private Facebook group. We have stories upon stories there of, like, I actually recently had, a friend of mine who lives in Fresno, California, use the calls as an anchor every day to wake up, and he lost 135 pounds in 1 year. I didn't do anything different, Jared. Number one, instantly my liver enzymes changed, and I have significant liver toxicity, and so I didn't even do anything. Just by my doctor's advice, just being up earlier and just shifting my day up, it instantly made me healthier. I didn't do anything different.
Liver enzymes, elevated liver enzymes, I should say, could be caused by lots of stuff out there. It could be from the extreme overabuse of foods or alcohol to stressing out too much, right? Even though we've learned to work really hard over time, getting back to the basics and sleeping will heal many things that you have going on in life. And that, I'm a prime story of that as well. Yeah,
and you're right. My liver enzyme numbers were 3 to 4x normal levels. And so getting those just even below 100 was a big deal for me. And just doing that. And my doctor was like, hey, you don't have to do anything. We're just going to, run your numbers every week. And if your numbers are below this number, this is good. Like, we don't care about anything else, because that's like you said, is the holy grail of, kind of life blueprint, where everything starts and ends in your gut, right?
Were you just doing a basic blood test profile to get that data, or how were you guys going about that?
Yeah, exactly. We were just doing very, very simple blood tests with just kind of liver panels. I know for the optimization and biohacker folks on the call, the one thing that I struggled with a lot, Jared, was the ability to go to sleep earlier.
Right.
And I tried a lot of different things. The two things that worked the most for me was a magnesium cream. That for some reason I got that from one of my coaches, putting that under behind my knees, in my armpits, and behind my ears, just as the skin being the largest organ to absorb something, highly concentrated levels of magnesium. It helped me sleep a lot.
Was it like you may not know offhand, I don't know if you're still using that or not, but was that like a magnesium sulfate? Normally in a cream version, I see the sulfate version a lot versus the different types of magnesium that are out there. Do you know what type it was by any chance?
I'll find that so we can add it to the show notes if you'd like. I think it was called a Super Mag or something like that, but I definitely can find it. I can see the bottle that I use. I still use that every day. I see the bottle that I use, and it's just a squishy pump type thing that you can, it doesn't smell great, but it worked, but this is the thing that you'll appreciate a lot. I went through a lot of different natural sleep supplements and kind of the Cabernet and, magnesium pills and, combinations of vitamin C and vitamin D. But finally, my doctor said to me, he goes, hey, why don't we try and create something that is built for your metabolism? So we actually went to the lab and engineered a sleep pill for me. And I've been actually handing those out to people. It's been awesome. It's completely changed my life. And it's all natural. It's only got 4 things in it: valerian extract, phenibut, 5-HTP, and melatonin. Melatonin being the smallest.
Oh, it's got phenibut in it. There's not too many things out there that contain that. That's a very interesting. I was not expecting you to say that ingredient in there. That's pretty cool.
It's just those 4. And the last run that I had to do, Jared, I had, I think the lab was like, hey, we're not making you sample supplements anymore. You have to order like a full batch. So I think I got like 80 bottles of this sitting in my garage now.
I take magnesium every night. I've heard some people talk about the cream form, and I'm very interested to hear more about this and link this up in show notes for others to hear about, because just what you're saying you struggled with. I mean, coming out of this, hindsight being 2020, you're not in the minority now with sleep. I mean, this is a major problem. It was my issue, sleeping 3 to 4 hours a night and then scratching my head every day trying to figure out why I didn't feel great. You feel like, no, it's got to be something else. I'll sleep some other time. It's got to be something else. But anything that can help us wind down at night, magnesium, lots of other things. That's interesting. Thanks so much for sharing that.
Of course. The 2 things that you asked, the 2 things that I've been very unlike my personality, but in the morning I do something called morning pages. I don't know if you've heard about this practice at all. And the idea is very simple, which is I just write, and I write everything that's in my head. My goal is to just sit and write. And I'd be like, I'm thinking about my podcast with Jared. Oh, my elbow hurts. I just write everything. I just write everything that's in my head to the point where I don't have any thoughts anymore. Generally, I kind of wake up and I do my 5 a.m. club call, and then I just sit down and I just write. And Jared, I will tell you, it's like just emptying the cup. I just write. I write till I'm done writing. Whatever is on my mind, I get it out. And this feeling of euphoria just comes over me. It is the greatest feeling. For those that love the kind of the post-workout high, this is my post. This doesn't even take, it takes 5-7 minutes tops. That's it. And I do the brain dump in the morning and the brain dump at night. And it just helped. Those 2 help me start my day and end my day. Those are my triggers. So as soon as I do my brain dump, I shut my notebook down, turn off the lights, I'm off to bed. So those 2 have turned as just ritualistic triggers for me, because I didn't really know, because a lot of people struggle with when does my night start? When does my morning start? So I kind of use those 2, just the time to do the brain dumps as triggers for starting of the day and the end of the day.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I like that idea of sitting down and doing the morning pages. I do my brain dump. My listeners who tune in a lot will know I do my brain dump at night and in the morning on my bathroom mirror, which my wife wishes that I would remember to erase it more times than not when we have guests and stuff over there walking in there to all my notes. I use the guest bathroom to get ready so I don't wake my wife and kids up in the other part of the house. And so I go in there and I'm just marking that thing up and I leave it there. And then the next morning I go in and I do basically the same thing, brushing my teeth. I start thinking of things. I start writing them all down. Then I'll snap a quick picture of it. But I think the pages is helpful because I'm not in a solitary seated spot.
Right.
But I'm just thinking the morning pages idea might be even better to be just still and quiet. And I'm definitely going to try that out for sure.
It's so the waking up, the commitment to waking up 7 days a week for the 5 a.m. call and writing my morning pages has, if I could have done that 10 years ago, I'd be excited to see the person I am today if I had looked back. I mean, it would be insane.
And Sharran, I know at some point you do the brain dump, you've gotten up early, you've done your call, you got to go out and make the day happen now, right? And we're all aiming for awesome days. That doesn't always happen. We have to ebb and flow with what comes our way. But I know that you like to talk about the phrase masterpiece days. Walk us through what that means to you and how you really try. I know John Wooden is big on masterpiece days and just everything he does, back in his day was trying to get everybody to do masterpiece actions and masterpiece days. What does that really mean to you? And have you really built your days around that?
Jared, when I was sick, I would lay in bed and I would just wish I could do certain things. I would just wish I could exercise. I would just say, you know what? I would pray, if only I could have one day which I could design the exact way I wanted. That will make me so much happier. And that's where this concept of the perfect day or the masterpiece day started. And I tell a lot of my friends this quote, and I said, if you don't know exactly what your perfect day looks like, if you don't know exactly what your masterpiece day looks like, well, you'll never have one. Just that's it. Like we don't have to overcomplicate it at all, right? And a lot of times we come home and say, "Oh yeah, did I have a good day or not?" There's no filter for it at all. And so I decided, and not in an extremely structured way, I decided in a very simple way, how could I put a framework together for a masterpiece day? So I can walk you through. There's 6 kind of components to my masterpiece day. I'm very happy to kind of share it. And some people,
yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. So there's 6 components. For it's eat, move, sleep. That's what we need for our human drives. Eat, move, sleep. And then there's the personal development component, the service component, and the deep work component. So I can walk through all of these, right? So let's talk about the eat, move, sleep. So the eat, move, sleep is, so every year I come up with some goals, but it falls in the eat, move, sleep. So if I take an eat, all I say is, I don't eat fast food, and I drink, my weight in ounces in water every single day. So if I wake up and I run the whole day where I don't eat any fast food and I drink my weight in ounces, I weigh 180 pounds. If I would drink my weight in ounces in water every single day, I check the box on eat, and man, I'm off to the next 5 categories. Super, super simple. My move is I just need to exercise 30 minutes a day. That's it. It's super simple. So if I wake up and I've exercised 30 minutes that day, that's a win. That's a great day. So the sleep is where we've engineered a lot of stuff. I actually have a sleep checklist, and I'm not a checklist kind of guy. I'm like a hardcore, go where my heart goes kind of guy. But Jared, I walk, it's painful, but I do my checklist every single day. Right before I go to bed, I'm like, hey, it may sound really mundane, but did I brush? Did I floss? Did I rinse? Did I stretch? Did I roll on my foam mattress? Did I set up my did I set up my clothes out for tomorrow? Just simple things which have gotten me in a ritual for having a really good night's sleep. The goal here is, did I run my sleep by a checklist? Did I check everything on my list? And all of those are like very easily accomplishable. So even if I'm on the road, I should still be able to brush, floss, rinse. I mean, it's just creating this. I got the checklist. So those are the 3 components of eat, move, sleep.
And I know we're not, everything, you have to test what's good for you. And there's certain things that are just good for everybody. Like you said, liver enzymes, get up early. There's probably a lot of other people that deal with that. So this may or may not be the right recipe for everybody. And again, everybody has to test this out. But we know you're getting up around 5 or a little before to get on your call. What time are you typically starting your evening wind down at night? And what time do you think you're hitting the pillow?
Yeah, so I'm trying to do. This has been the hardest part, and I'll share my what I've been doing the last 6-7 weeks, Jared. I think I'm starting the routine about 8:30. Somewhat trying to do this, what we call the kind of the digital shutdown, if you will. Just trying to put my phone in airplane mode. I can still use my phone, but I'm just going to put it in airplane mode, just because that I turning it off and putting it away. Just felt very draconian to me, just because I'd be like, I have a thought about tomorrow. I just want to add it. I don't mind me creating an interface with technology. I just don't want to be checking Facebook, checking feeds, checking email. I don't want to be someone else's agenda. So that's why I've just gone to airplane mode around 8:30 at night. And at 9, this is where I try to just kind of start the routine.
And for somebody who, as you mentioned earlier in the show, was really used to kind of shutting down work at 9 o'clock and then getting your best work done, obviously you've changed that. What's your target for just winding that up and then really starting, quote unquote, your evening where you can get on to other things?
Yeah, so great. So that gets me to bucket number 4, and I call this just a deep work bucket. I've been really into the whole. If you've read Cal Newport's book, Deep Work, just a great book. And everybody talks about this, Jared. They tell you need 4.5 hours of deep work and jam sessions, and I'm like, I don't have. I can't. My life doesn't allow me like 90-minute blocks like that. So I created this deep work, and I call it the 30-60-90 block. So at some point in my day, if it's a masterpiece day, if it's a perfect day, I have done 1 block of 30 minutes, 1 block of 60 minutes, and 1 block of 90 minutes of very focused work. And that seems a lot more manageable for me. And my first block of 30 minutes happens in the morning. So right when I wake up, I either get to work out or write. And I try to write, I try to create something every day. And that gives me a lot of joy. And that's my 30-minute deep work block in the morning. I turn off, put my Wi-Fi off and just write or read. I want to create something. But so the deep work blocks end up being kind of the 30, 60, and 90-minute blocks. But when I come home, I got little kids. My son is 6, my daughter is 2, and they are in a place where they can call me out, just like they can probably call you out saying, "Hey, Daddy, put away your phone." And that's really, it is so sad to do that. And Jared, I'll tell a story, and I don't know if you or your listener can connect with this. About for a year or so, I would pull in my driveway. My children would already be home. They would run out of the garage into the driveway, and they'd start to be excited that I was home, and I would be on the phone, and I would just point them to my index finger, and I'd say, "Give me a minute." And this would happen over and over, and I would see their faces go from excitement to sadness as they walked back into the house. It's the saddest thing. And and Jared, all I did was I try to do a state change. So right before when I pull into my neighborhood, I just pull over and I put on a guided meditation app for like 5 or 6 minutes, just to get just change my state. That's it. I just change my state. That way I turn off my phone. And, I'm in a better place because whatever call or whatever I had, I shut it off. And so when I pull in the garage and my kids come out, I'm on my path to being a better dad. And this is not hard. I've also realized now, and before, Jared, I always thought that since I didn't have blocks of deep work, I would just go from fire to fire. And then at the end of the day, I would be like, you know what? I didn't create anything. I need a block of deep work. Therefore, I should do it at night. But now that I've kind of baked these blocks in, even if I get one 30 or 60-minute block in of deep work, I feel like I contributed and created and built something that day, generally not unlike what it was in the past, where I would just go fire to fire. And then at night, as you and I would have done in the past, I would just try to grind to create something at night to give myself the feeling of accomplishment before I went to bed. So it was eat, move, sleep, deep work. So those are the 4. The other 2, I think of them as service. And so I think at the end of the day, we all believe, I've noticed that the days that I serve, the days that I create for a cause better than myself, I just feel better about myself. That just as simple as that. I mean, and 10 years ago, Jared, it would have been really hard for me to say that, right? It would have been really hard for me to say to you, "Hey, I'm doing this activity because it makes me feel good about myself." And I think we all get bonus points for telling the truth, because if I do the 5 a.m. club because it wakes me up and it makes me feel better about myself that I'm helping transform someone's life. When we give money to charities, it makes us feel better about ourselves. And if not, we would never do it anyway, right? So if I can just build some form of service into my day, and I like the 5 a.m. club, I do it 7 days a week. That kind of checks that box on that for me. But if I've noticed that the days where I didn't have a service component, however small it may be, just a thank you note to somebody or just doing something that is bigger than ourselves, I found that it just left me a little incomplete. So the 5th bucket is service. And the last one, I just call it personal development. I try to read 5 to 10 pages before I go to bed. I just want to put something good into my brain so that I can create and live and think of a bigger and better tomorrow. So if a day goes by where I can't grow or I can't put myself in a position where I've learned and developed personally, then it's a little incomplete. So those are the 6 buckets: eat, move, sleep, deep work, service, and personal development.
So what I'm thinking about here is, as you're going through that and you're putting those check boxes in, I'm sure you're doing this, 7 days a week. You're trying to get all of this in. I would ask, how would you help somebody understand how not to beat themselves up if in just the grind of the day, they're not, 2 or 3 days go by and they messed up on the eating box. So there's no checks there. They didn't get to sleep on time and do their checklist. They ran out of time during the day and didn't find somebody to serve because they weren't conscious of it. The pull is to say, oh, well, next week I'll do better. But if that happens for a prolonged period of time, how would you frame that for somebody to where it doesn't become overwhelming? Because you know what happens then. People just ditch it, right?
So totally right. You're spot on. So two things. Number one is if it doesn't find its way naturally onto your calendar, there's a good chance it's not getting done. And I think if we can't build our days around it. So the one thing that I've done, Jared, I'll share this. I actually told Craig Ballantyne, our mutual friend, this as well. Right before I go to bed, this has probably been a very transformative thing for me. Right before I go to bed, and before I turn off the lights, I close my eyes. And it sounds a little hokey, but I close my eyes. And what I try to do is I try to kind of do the Michael Phelps thing where I just visualize my entire next day. So, hey, here's Sharran waking up. I hear my alarm go off. I don't snooze because that's the wrong domino you want to set off. I chug a glass of water because I put the water right next to my bed. I don't have to go find it. It's right there. I dress up, I go downstairs, I make my call, I go work out. I just walk I'm going to eat this for breakfast. So I already pre-make the choices. I do this for breakfast. I do 3 blocks of deep work. I come home, I do this meditation. I hang out with my kids. I get my wife ready. I get ready for my next day, and I'm back here, and I'm going to write down what I did. That's all I visualize. I mean, that's it. Talking about it is actually a lot longer than you think about it. And if you get
because you said it's only 1 minute.
Right. Just super fast. I just walk through the day in my head, because then the next day when you encounter that moment of waking up and the alarm goes off, it feels like you've already done it. And so you just do that. So that would, my first thing would be the days that I visualize, or the nights that I visualize my next day are significantly more masterpiece-like than the nights that I don't. And I always ask myself, like, why don't I visualize? So that's part of my nightly checklist now. The last thing I do is visualize my day before I turn off my light. And it's been super powerful to do that. That's number one. Number two, Jared, I just got away from the grid because it's too stressful. I just write on a single page every night, just in my brain dump. I just write, eat, move, sleep, deep work, service, personal development. Once you have that, I just write what I did for each of those that day, so I can look at it and feel good about it. And then I just turn the page. That way, every day is a new day and a new chance for me to have that masterpiece day without having the baggage of the previous days of me not potentially accomplishing it kind of encroach onto what I can do that next day.
You hit it spot on with what I was hoping, where I was hoping that you would take that for the listeners without knowing. And whenever I'm coaching these financial advisors here that I'm working with my office or my private coaching clients, I was given this advice of wisdom long ago, as it sounds like maybe you were or came to realize on your own, that if we're focused on the outcome and we're constantly seeing that grid not being filled out, that's going to be an extreme form of self-sabotage. Whereas if we're looking at the process, so the process is eat, move, sleep, service, going on down through those and starting anew each day and saying, okay, can I just stick to the process of doing what I need to do each day, flipping the page and moving on? It's helping you to stay focused on it each day because you're sticking to the process, not focusing on your defeats or where you didn't add up or, eventually just ditching it, right? Because we're all different, but human nature is a lot alike when it comes to accomplishing things. And we will ditch it if it becomes too much or too hard to handle.
100, you're spot on. And I, the last thing that we want to look at, like Jared, I do whatever it takes to take away any kind of friction, self-doubt, some kind of, hard, no holds barred accountability where I have to guilt me into doing something. If I have to guilt myself into doing something, it's probably not naturally, occurring in my life. Like I don't want it. I don't want it. And if I can't align with the goals that I want and be inspired by the things that I need to do to create the life that I want, well, then I just need to probably reframe my blueprint and have more self-awareness on the life that I want. There's a really great book by this guy named Dan Sullivan, who's a super coach up in Canada. It's run Strategic Coach. This book is called Wanting What You Want, right? It's just so great. It's a short book. And I think a lot of times we create this rationale for why we want something. It's like, well, I want a Porsche because it's going to do these 3 things, or I want a big house on the water, because there is no because. You want a Porsche? Great. You want a house on the water? Great. Just want what you want. Yeah. And it takes away all the pressure around, everything else. And so as soon as you stop having a reason, I found, Jared, that you may not even want what you thought you want.
That is so true. Our brains, as well-meaning adults who should know better, that seems like the most simple thing, but we don't, right? I mean, many times we dive into things and then realize that it was foolish. Why did I do this? So I think it all comes back to examination. And really, this checklist is awesome. These masterpiece days, I think that's great. I think, man, you've provided us with so many nuggets here today. Where can we steer listeners your way? Where can they see more of your writing, find out more about what you're doing?
Yeah, so thank you. So the easiest way is Sharran.com. So that's SHARRAN.com. One of my kind of gifts that I'm trying to give back to the world is I write a daily email called the Daily Mojo, which is just a short burst of inspiration. It's free, of course, just to get something delivered into people's inboxes. And Jared, you'll really like, hopefully you'll like the thought process around this. I've actually unsubscribed to all information. So I say, hey, if I can go search for it, like I'm going to unsubscribe from it, but I'm subscribing to inspiration and unsubscribing to information. And so so my goal has been, hey, how can I get an email into Jared, I would wake up every morning and I would look through my email, and the first thing that I would see, the first thing that people do when they look at their email is they have a bunch of email, they hit select and they start deleting email. That's the first thing that they do, which is okay. But the problem is I wanted someone to say, hey, I'm going to turn on my email and I'm going to go to Sharran's email first because I'm guaranteed something positive, something inspirational. So I wanted to provide that, which is just one iPhone screen length worth of text where you can kind of skim it and create some joy out of it. I write that every single day. It's called the Daily Mojo. It's easy to subscribe. So everything is at SHARRAN.com.
Yeah, we wish you the best. And I will definitely go over and subscribe to that because I had to learn that hard lesson in 2017 that a lot of good stuff at some point becomes noise if you're not able to filter through it. You're either missing stuff or you're not doing the right thing. So, man, we wish you the best. Again, I'll link all this up in show notes. Thanks for your time here today and look forward to watching more and more content that you're putting out to help us all be better. And the thing I love about you, man, that I just want to affirm you here for a second. The thing that I love about you that has really kept me engaged this whole conversation more than anything is that you and I share a lot of the same ideas of, it's the upgraded peak performance, right? Which could mean a lot of different things, but doing that in a very easy and bite-sized way to where people can test, not become overwhelmed, not throw it in the drawer and not look at it again for a while, as we just mentioned. But all the stuff you mentioned today is not rocket science, but wow, it'll sure change and turn your life around. And I think people need more of that than so much of the in-your-face, hard, complex stuff that maybe they don't need to get on the track they need to be on and get out of sickness and get onto the path that, you and I both had to go through. So, man, I just want to affirm you in that. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And I want to make sure that people know that it takes a lot to do what you do and time out of your day and production and post-production and all of that. So thank you for what you do.
Hey guys, I loved having Sharran on the podcast today and hope you took a ton away from his big picture, big thinking message. If you guys would like to connect directly with me, the best way to do that is to shoot my team an email at info@success101podcast.com, or you can catch me in the world of social media on Facebook at the Success 101 Podcast Facebook community page, or on Instagram under the name @Success 101 Podcast. I'll catch you guys on the next awesome episode. Until then.